I took my husband's phone in for repair. The technician, a family friend, pulled me aside and said, "Cancel the cards and change the locks immediately." Confused, I asked, "What happened?" He showed me the screen. "I found these scheduled messages. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. I've always believed that the small decisions matter most. The ones we make without thinking, driven by routine and the comfortable assumption that tomorrow will resemble today." That Tuesday morning in Portland, Maine, I made one such decision. I picked up Robert's phone from the nightstand where he'd left it, noticed the cracked screen he'd been complaining about for weeks, and decided to finally take it to Kevin's repair shop on Commercial Street. My name is Stella Hammond, and I'm 66 years old. I've been married to Robert for 41 years. We raised 3 children in our modest Victorian on Munjoy Hill, watched them grow, marry, move away, and return for holidays with grandchildren in tow. I worked as a librarian for 37 years before retiring. Robert still practices dentistry 3 days a week, though he talks constantly about full retirement. We are, by all accounts, ordinary, comfortable, safe. That morning, Robert had already left for his office. He'd been agitated the night before, pacing the kitchen, checking his phone repeatedly. When I asked what was wrong, he'd smiled that practiced smile I'd seen him use with nervous patients and said, "Just a billing issue with the practice. Nothing to worry about, Stella." I'd learned long ago not to press Robert when he used that tone. Our marriage had been built on a foundation of mutual respect and carefully maintained boundaries. He handled the finances. I handled the home. He made the big decisions. I made them palatable. It worked. It had always worked. Kevin's electronics sat wedged between a coffee shop and a used bookstore, the kind of neighborhood fixture that survives on reputation and personal relationships. Kevin Torres had been fixing our family's devices for 15 years. His daughter had been in my book club. His wife brought me soup when I had pneumonia 3 winters ago. He was, in the way small communities create them, family. The bell chimed as I entered. Kevin looked up from a disassembled laptop, reading glasses perched on his bald head. "Mrs. Hammond, what brings you in?" "Robert's phone," I said, holding up the device. "The screen's been cracked for a month. He keeps saying he'll bring it in, but you know men." Kevin laughed, the comfortable laugh of shared exasperation. "Leave it with me. Should have it done by 4. "What's the passcode?" I recited the 6 digits, Robert's mother's birthday, a code he'd used for everything since I'd known him. Simple. Predictable. Robert wasn't a man who embraced complexity. "Perfect. I'll call when it's ready." I spent the day as I spent most days. Tuesday morning yoga at the community center. Lunch with Margaret, my friend of 30 years, who talked about her daughter's divorce with the kind of tired resignation that comes from watching your children make the mistakes you predicted. Grocery shopping. I bought salmon for dinner, the wild-caught kind Robert preferred. Expensive, but worth it for the way it made him smile. The call came at 3:30. "Mrs. Hammond? It's Kevin. The phone's fixed, but..." He paused, and in that pause, I felt something shift. "Could you come in? There's something I need to show you." "Is there a problem with the repair?" "No, the screen's fine. Just, please come in, and come alone." I'd known Kevin for 15 years. I'd never heard that tone in his voice before. Careful. Frightened, almost. The drive back to Commercial Street took 12 minutes. I counted them. When you're 66, you've learned to recognize the moments before everything changes. Your body knows before your mind accepts it. My hands were steady on the wheel, but my heart beat against my ribs like something caged. Kevin was waiting by the door. He locked it behind me, flipped the sign to closed, and led me to the back room where he did repairs. Robert's phone sat on the workbench, screen gleaming and intact. "Stella," he said, and the use of my first name confirmed what I already knew. This was personal now, not business. "I need you to listen carefully. Cancel the credit cards. Change the locks at your house. Today, right now." The room tilted slightly. I gripped the edge of the workbench. "What are you talking about?" "When I was transferring data to test the new screen, I found something in his messages. Scheduled messages." Kevin's jaw worked. I almost didn't look. I wish I hadn't. But once I saw, "God, Stella, you need to see this." He picked up the phone, unlocked it with the code I'd given him, and opened the messaging app. Then he navigated to a feature I didn't even know existed: scheduled messages, queued to send automatically at future dates and times. There were 7 of them, all addressed to the same number, all scheduled to send over the next 3 months. Kevin handed me the phone. "I'm so sorry." I read the first message, then the second. By the third, I had to sit down. The messages were from Robert to someone named L. They weren't love letters, nothing so simple. They were instructions, logistical, clinical, frighteningly detailed. "The life insurance policy is in the safe, combination 32 to 18 or 7. Death benefit is $750,000. Stella's signature is on file with the company. They won't question it. I've been documenting her memory issues with Dr. Patterson. He's agreed she's showing early signs of dementia. This establishes pattern if anyone asks questions later. The will leaves everything to the kids, but I'm executor. I'll control distribution. Once probate clears, we can access everything without suspicion. 6 months, maybe 8. Remember, grief is expected. I'll play the devastated widower. The community will support me. No one questions a man who's lost his wife of 40 years. My vision narrowed to a tunnel. The phone felt heavy in my hands, as if it weighed more than any object had a right to weigh. I scrolled to the last message, scheduled to send 3 months from today. It's done. The funeral was yesterday. Everything went as planned. I'll see you in Boca next week. The condo is ready. Our new life starts now. The date of that final message was January 12th, 3 months from now. In Robert's mind, in whatever calculation he'd made of my remaining time on Earth, I would be dead by January 12th. Kevin was talking, his words coming from somewhere far away. I don't know who L is. I don't know what he's planning. But these messages... Stella, he's documenting your death before it happens. He's planning something. I looked up at him. Kevin's face was pale, his hands shaking slightly. He'd known me for 15 years. He'd fixed my laptop when I accidentally downloaded a virus. He'd helped me transfer photos of my grandchildren to my tablet. He'd taught me how to use FaceTime during the pandemic. And now he was showing me proof that my husband of 41 years was planning to kill me. "Have you told anyone else?" My voice sounded strange, calm, too calm. "No, Jesus, no. I called you immediately." Kevin ran a hand over his face. "We need to call the police, right now." "No." "Stella?" "No," I repeated, and this time there was steel in my voice. I stood, steadied myself against the workbench, and looked at Kevin Torres with the full weight of my 66 years behind my gaze. "If we call the police now, what do we have? Messages on a phone. He'll say they were drafts, jokes, fiction he was writing. He's a respected dentist. I'm a retired librarian he's been telling people has memory problems. Who do you think they'll believe?" Kevin opened his mouth, closed it. He knew I was right. I looked back at the phone, at the messages that laid out my death like a dentist's appointment. Clinical, scheduled, inevitable. "I need to copy these," I said. "All of them. And then I need you to repair this phone as if nothing happened." "Can you do that?" "Stella, what are you going to do?" I thought about Robert pacing the kitchen last night, checking his phone. Had he been checking these messages? Making sure they were still queued? Planning my murder with the same care he used to plan our vacation to Acadia last summer? "I'm going to find out who L is," I said quietly. "I'm going to find out exactly what he's planning. And then I'm going to make sure the only funeral that happens in January is the one for his reputation." Kevin stared at me. Then, slowly, he nodded and pulled out his own phone. "I'll take screenshots. I'll send them to my encrypted email. Evidence." As he photographed each message, I forced myself to read them again, to see past the shock and terror and focus on what they revealed. Robert had been planning this for months. He'd laid groundwork with our family doctor, making me look unstable. He'd reviewed our finances, our insurance, our estate planning. He'd found someone, this mysterious L, to help him, or perhaps to run away with after. And he'd been so confident, so certain of success, that he'd scheduled messages to send after my death. A timeline of triumph. He'd made one crucial mistake, though. One small, arrogant error that men like Robert always made. He'd underestimated me. He'd looked at his 66-year-old wife, with her yoga classes and book clubs and salmon dinners, and seen someone easy to erase. He'd forgotten that librarians are researchers, that we know how to find information, how to trace connections, how to build cases from scattered facts. He'd forgotten that women my age didn't survive this long by being naive. Kevin finished photographing the messages and handed me back the phone. "What now?" "Now you fix this screen beautifully," I said. "And when Robert picks it up tomorrow, you tell him everything worked perfectly. No data lost. No problems at all. And you?" I slipped the phone into my purse. "I'm going home to make dinner. And then I'm going to find out every secret my husband has been keeping." I walked out of that repair shop into the October afternoon. The sun was setting over Casco Bay, painting the water gold and red. Beautiful. Deceptive. Like 41 years of marriage that had hidden a murder plot beneath its calm surface. Robert wanted me dead by January 12th. He was going to be disappointed. I cooked the salmon that evening with the kind of precision that comes from muscle memory. Sear for 4 minutes on each side. Finish with lemon and dill. Roasted asparagus on the side. I moved through our kitchen, with its white subway tiles I'd chosen and the copper pots Robert's mother had given us as a wedding gift, and felt like a stranger in my own life. Robert arrived home at 6:15, exactly as he had for 41 years. I heard his key in the lock, the familiar pattern of his footsteps in the hallway. He appeared in the kitchen doorway, still wearing his white dental coat, and smiled. "Something smells wonderful," he said, and kissed my cheek. His lips felt like ice against my skin. "How was your day?" I asked, my voice steady, level. The voice I'd perfected over 4 decades of marriage. Long. Mrs. Patterson needed a root canal, and you know how she talks. He loosened his tie, that small gesture of coming home I'd watched thousands of times. "How about you? What did you do today?" This was the test. I set down the spatula and turned to face him. "I took your phone to Kevin's. He'll finish final tests overnight so you can pick it up tomorrow." I watched his face. Watched for the flicker of panic, the tightening around his eyes. Any sign that he remembered what was hidden in that phone. Nothing. His smile didn't waver. "Oh, wonderful. Thank you, dear. I keep meaning to do that." He moved to the refrigerator, pulled out a beer. "Kevin do his usual good work?" "Perfect as always," I said, and turned back to the salmon. He didn't suspect. He'd planned my murder with such confidence that it never occurred to him the phone might betray him. Or perhaps he'd simply forgotten those scheduled messages, tucked away in a feature he assumed I'd never discover. Arrogance. It would be his downfall. We ate dinner at the table, just the 2 of us in the dining room that had once held 5. Robert talked about a new dental assistant he'd hired, about the Red Sox's disappointing season, about our son Michael's upcoming visit for Thanksgiving. Normal conversation. Comfortable lies wrapped in the routine of 41 years. "Actually," Robert said, setting down his fork, "I've been thinking about the holidays. Maybe we should have everyone here this year. The whole family. Could be our last big gathering before—" He trailed off, made a vague gesture. "Before what?" I asked, though ice was forming in my stomach. "Before we get too old for this big house," he said smoothly. "I've been thinking we should downsize, maybe a condo. Less maintenance." He reached across the table, patted my hand. "And honestly, Stella, I've been worried about you. The stairs, your memory lately. I think something smaller might be better. My memory." He was laying groundwork, even at dinner, making his case for my incompetence, my decline. How many other people had he told? How long had he been building this narrative? "My memory is fine," I said quietly. "Of course it is." That patronizing smile. "I just want what's best for you. For us." After dinner, Robert retreated to his study, a room I rarely entered, his domain of dental journals and financial records. I cleaned the kitchen with the same precision I'd used to cook, and then I went upstairs to our bedroom. Our bedroom. I looked at it with new eyes. The queen bed we'd shared for 41 years. The photographs on the dresser. Our wedding, the kids at various ages, grandchildren. Robert's reading glasses on the nightstand. my mystery novels stacked beside the lamp. Which side of the bed would Elle sleep on once I was dead? I sat at the small desk in the corner, opened my laptop, and began to search. Finding Elle wouldn't be easy. A single initial provided no trail. But Robert was a creature of habit, and habits left patterns. I started with his email. I'd known his password for years, the same digits as his phone, his mother's birthday. He'd never bothered to hide his accounts from me. Why would he? I was just Stella, his agreeable wife, who never pried, never questioned. His inbox revealed nothing unusual. Emails from the dental practice, confirmations for tea times at the golf course, newsletters from investment firms. I scrolled back 3 months, 6 months, looking for anything addressed to someone with an L name. Nothing. I checked his sent folder, his deleted items, his spam. Hours passed. Downstairs, I heard Robert's study door open, his footsteps heading to the kitchen for his nightly cup of tea. The house settled into its familiar sounds around me, and I kept searching. At 11 o'clock, I found the first thread. It was in a folder I almost missed, labeled Practice Management. Buried among legitimate emails about scheduling and supplies was a message from 3 months ago, addressed to someone named L. Hardy. The contract is ready for your review. Once this is finalized, we can move forward with the partnership. I've attached the financials you requested. As you can see, the practice is quite profitable, more than enough for both of us. Partnership. L. Hardy wasn't a lover, at least not just a lover. This was business. I opened the attachment. It was a detailed financial statement of Robert's dental practice, but the numbers didn't match what he'd shown me on our taxes. The practice was worth nearly $2 million, triple what I'd believed, and there was a notation at the bottom. Asset liquidation timeline, January 2025. January, the month I was supposed to die. My hands trembled as I searched for more emails from L. Hardy. There were 7 more, each carefully hidden in that innocuous folder. The story emerged like a photograph developing in a dark room. L. Hardy, Laura Hardy, was a business consultant Robert had hired 6 months ago. The emails were professional at first, discussing practice valuation and potential buyers. But by the 3rd email, the tone had shifted. I appreciate your discretion regarding the personal aspects of this transition. As we discussed, a clean break from your current situation will make the sale and relocation much simpler. I'm looking forward to our new arrangement. Current situation. He meant me. And then, in an email from August, I've reserved the condo in Boca Raton. 2 bedrooms, ocean view, as you requested. We can close on it as soon as your affairs here are settled. I'm attaching the listing photos. I think you'll approve. I clicked on the attachment. A luxury condominium, all white marble and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Atlantic. $2 million, according to the listing price, to be purchased with the money from Robert's practice, and presumably my life insurance. I took screenshots of everything, emailed them to myself at an address Robert didn't know about, then cleared my browser history. It was past midnight when I finally climbed into bed beside my husband. He was already asleep, snoring softly, one arm flung across my pillow. I lay in the dark and listened to him breathe. How many nights had we slept like this? How many mornings had I woken beside him? How had I never seen what lay beneath the surface? Or had I seen it, and simply chosen not to look? The next morning I drove to the Portland Public Library where I'd worked for 37 years. I knew every corner of that building, every resource, every research database. More importantly, I knew the people. Stella! Marian Andrews, the head reference librarian, looked up from her desk with genuine pleasure. What brings you in? Missing us already? Can't stay away, I said, smiling. Marian, I need a favor. I need to research someone, but I need it done quietly. Marian's expression sharpened. She'd worked with me for 20 years. She knew when something was wrong. Come into my office. I told her a version of the truth, that I suspected Robert was planning something financial, possibly selling his practice, possibly planning to leave, that I needed information on his business partner. I didn't mention murder. Not yet. That truth was too large, too impossible to speak aloud. Laura Hardy, Marian repeated, typing into her computer. Let's see what we can find. What we found over the next 3 hours was damning. Laura Hardy was 42 years old, a business consultant specializing in medical practice acquisitions. She'd worked on a dozen practice sales in the past 5 years. She was based in Boston but traveled frequently. She was divorced, no children, and according to her LinkedIn profile, she had recently relocated to Portland, Maine to oversee a significant new acquisition. "She's local?" I asked. "Very local." Marion clicked through to property records. She bought a condo downtown 6 months ago. Pearl Street, overlooking the harbor. Paid cash, $800,000. Where would a business consultant get that kind of money? Marion must have seen the question on my face. "Want me to dig deeper?" "Please." By noon, Marion had traced Laura Hardy's financial history through public records and professional registries. The woman was drowning in debt. Her previous business had failed spectacularly 2 years ago, leaving her with outstanding loans and creditors. The Portland condo had been purchased through a shell company, and the money, Marion's eyes widened as she found this, the money had been transferred from an account belonging to Robert's dental practice. "Stella," Marion said carefully, "this woman appears to be embezzling from your husband's practice. Or he's funding her." I finished. Willingly. Robert had given Laura Hardy $800,000. He'd promised her a luxury condo in Boca Raton. He was planning to sell his practice for $2 million and disappear with her in January. And the only thing standing in his way was me. "There's something else," Marion said, her voice dropping. "I found court records. Laura Hardy was investigated for elder fraud in Massachusetts 3 years ago. A client accused her of manipulating him into signing over his assets. The case was dismissed due to lack of evidence. But Stella, she has a pattern. Elder fraud. I was 66 years old. Robert was 68. How stupid does he think I am?" I whispered. "What?" "He's being conned. He thinks he's planning my death, but she's planning his." I looked at Marion, the pieces falling into place. "He's giving her money, making me look incompetent to justify the murder, probably writing a will that leaves everything to her through some arrangement. And once I'm dead and he's killed me, she has him. He'd be a murderer. She could control everything." Marion's face had gone pale. "Stella, we need to call the police, right now." "And tell them what? That my husband might be planning something? Based on scheduled messages and financial transfers that could all have innocent explanations?" I shook my head. "I need more. I need proof of what they're planning. I need to know exactly how he intends to kill me." "How will you—" My phone rang. Robert's number. I answered, my voice calm. "Hello? Stella, where are you?" Robert's voice was tight with something I couldn't identify. Anger? Fear? The library. "Why?" "I need you to come home. Now. We have a visitor." "Who?" There was a pause. Then, "Dr. Patterson stopped by because you were too anxious to come into the office. He agreed to a brief house call to review the cognitive screening he says he has on file." The room tilted. "I haven't had a cognitive assessment." "Yes, you have. Last month, don't you remember?" His voice took on that patronizing tone. "Stella, this is exactly what we're concerned about. Please come home. Dr. Patterson is waiting." He hung up. I stared at the phone. Marion was watching me, her face full of fear and sympathy. "He's fabricating medical records," I said slowly. "He's bringing our family doctor into this, creating documentation of my supposed dementia. He's building his case right now." "Stella, if I go home, Dr. Patterson will examine me. Robert will have coached him on what to look for, what to document. He'll create a paper trail showing I'm incompetent." I stood, my legs unsteady. "And once that trail exists, when I die, no one will question it. Just a tragedy. A woman with dementia, maybe an accident, maybe she got confused with her medications." That was how he planned to do it. Not violence, not anything that would leave evidence, just a slow, documented decline that would make my death seem inevitable. Expected, sad, but not suspicious. "What are you going to do?" Marion asked. I thought about Robert waiting at home with Dr. Patterson. I thought about Laura Hardy and her downtown condo, bought with my husband's money. I thought about those scheduled messages, counting down to my death. I'm going to go home, I said. And I'm going to take that cognitive assessment, and I'm going to pass it perfectly. And then I'm going to find out every detail of their plan, and I'm going to dismantle it piece by piece. I picked up my purse, headed for the door. Marion, I need you to keep researching. Everything you can find on Laura Hardy, every case she's worked, every client she's had. Can you do that? Of course. But Stella, be careful. I've been careful for 66 years, I said. It's time to be something else. I drove home through autumn streets, past the harbor where tourists photographed the lighthouse, past the coffee shop where Robert and I used to have Sunday breakfast. Everything looked the same. Beautiful. Normal. Everything was a lie. Dr. Patterson's silver Mercedes sat in our driveway. I parked beside it, checked my appearance in the rearview mirror. Neat, composed, completely sane. I walked into my house to find my husband and my doctor waiting in the living room, and on the coffee table between them sat a folder labeled Cognitive Assessment, Stella Hammond. Robert smiled at me. There you are, dear. Dr. Patterson has some concerns he'd like to discuss. Of course, I said, and sat down in the chair across from them. And as Dr. Patterson opened that folder full of fabricated test results, I realized something that Robert had forgotten in his careful planning. I'd spent 37 years as a librarian. I knew how to research, how to document, how to build an airtight case. And I'd spent 41 years as his wife. I knew his patterns, his habits, his weaknesses. He'd made me invisible by underestimating me. Now that invisibility would be my greatest weapon. Now then, Stella, Dr. Patterson began, pulling out a series of papers. Your husband brought you in last month for some routine cognitive testing. Do you remember that? I looked him in the eye and lied with 41 years of practice behind me. Dr. Patterson's cognitive assessment was designed to make me fail. I saw that immediately in the way the questions were structured, the way Robert watched me with barely concealed anticipation, waiting for me to stumble. What year is it, Stella? 2024. October 8th, to be precise. Tuesday. You're wearing the blue tie your wife gave you for your birthday last month. I was at the party, and you had salmon for dinner last night because I can smell it on your breath when you lean forward. Dr. Patterson blinked. Beside him, Robert's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. The assessment continued for 40 minutes. I answered every question perfectly, recited strings of numbers backward and forward, drew clock faces with precise hands, named objects, recalled lists. I was polite, sharp, undeniably competent. Well, Dr. Patterson said finally, closing his folder with a decisive snap. Your cognitive function appears completely normal today, Stella. Perhaps there was an error in the previous testing. Perhaps there was no previous testing, I said quietly. The room went silent. Robert's face remained carefully neutral, but I saw his hands clench on the armrest of his chair. Stella, he began. You're confused. No, Robert, I'm not. I turned to Dr. Patterson. Doctor, I've never been to your office for cognitive testing. I've never had an appointment for dementia screening. And yet you have a folder with my name on it containing fabricated results. I'd very much like to know how that happened. Dr. Patterson's face flushed. Mrs. Hammond, I can assure you these records are false. They're false. I stood, walked to the coffee table and picked up the folder. This is dated September 12th. On September 12th, I was in Boston at a library conference. I have hotel receipts, conference attendance records, and photographs with colleagues. I wasn't anywhere near your office. I checked the dates that morning at the library, pulling up my calendar, my credit card statements. I'd known Robert would have created some kind of paper trail, and I'd needed to prove it was fiction. There must be some mistake, Dr. Patterson said, but his voice had lost its authority. He was looking at Robert now, confusion and the first hint of concern crossing his features. Yes, I agreed. There has been a mistake, a deliberate one. I opened the folder, pulled out the assessment forms. These aren't even your forms, Doctor. The letterhead is slightly wrong. The address says Suite 240, but your practice is in Suite 204. I know because I've been there a dozen times over the years. Someone created these documents, but they weren't careful enough. Robert stood abruptly. Stella, I think you need to rest. You're obviously upset. I'm not upset. I'm clear-headed, possibly for the first time in years. I turned back to Dr. Patterson. Doctor, did my husband ask you to create false medical records? Or did he create them himself and plan to have you validate them? I don't. Dr. Patterson was stammering now, gathering his papers with shaking hands. I think there's been a serious misunderstanding. Robert, perhaps we should discuss this privately. That's an excellent idea, Robert said smoothly, moving toward the door. Stella, why don't you rest upstairs while Dr. Patterson and I sort this out? No. The word came out harder than I'd intended. I'm not going anywhere. In fact, doctor, I think you should leave. Now. And I think you should consider very carefully what you say about this visit, because false medical records are a serious crime. Dr. Patterson practically fled. I heard his Mercedes start, the spray of gravel as he reversed too quickly out of our driveway. Robert and I stood in the living room, facing each other across 41 years of marriage. Stella, he said finally, his voice taking on a reasonable, measured tone. I know how this looks, but you have to understand. I'm worried about you. I've been worried for months. Your memory, your confusion. Stop. I held up one hand. We both know I'm not confused. We both know exactly what's happening here. Something changed in his face. The mask of concern slipped, just for a moment, and I saw beneath it. Cold calculation. Irritation at a plan gone wrong. What exactly do you think is happening? He asked quietly. I think you're planning to have me declared incompetent so you can control our assets. I think you're involved with someone named Laura Hardy. I think... His hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but hard enough to shock. In 41 years, Robert had never grabbed me. You've been going through my things, he said, and his voice was different now. Colder. My emails. My files. Your unlocked accounts, I corrected, pulling my wrist free. You never bothered to hide anything because you never thought I'd look. You underestimated me. Clearly. He stepped back, ran a hand through his hair. When he looked at me again, the mask was back in place, but thinner now. Transparent. All right. Let's talk honestly. Yes, I'm planning to sell the practice. Yes, Laura is helping me. We've become close. I wasn't sure how to tell you. How to tell me you're planning to leave? Or how to tell me you're planning to kill me first? The words hung in the air between us. Robert's face went white, then flushed with anger. That's insane, he said, but his voice wavered. I would never. January 12th, I said. That's the date on your scheduled messages. The ones where you tell Laura, L, as you call her, that the funeral is over and your new life is beginning. I've read them all, Robert. Every word. He sat down heavily on the sofa, his face in his hands. For a long moment, he didn't speak. When he finally looked up, there were tears in his eyes. I never meant for you to find out like this, he said quietly. Stella, I'm so sorry, but you have to understand. I've been unhappy for years. Decades, maybe. This marriage, this life, it's been suffocating me. Laura makes me feel alive again. It was the tears that shocked me most. They looked real. Perhaps they were. Perhaps he actually believed his own justification. So leave, I said. Get a divorce. You don't need to kill me to be with her. It's not that simple. He wiped his eyes, and now his voice took on a pleading quality. The practice, the house, everything we've built. It's all joint assets. A divorce would destroy me financially. The practice is worth $2 million, Stella. I've worked my entire life for that. I can't give half of it away. So you'd rather kill me for it. No, God, no. I never... He stopped, seemed to reconsider. The messages weren't serious. They were fantasy, role-playing. Laura and I, we were just... Don't. I felt something break inside me, some last thread of the woman I'd been. Don't insult me with more lies. I know about the condo in Boca Raton, the $800,000 you've already given her, her history of elder fraud. I know everything. Robert's face went hard. If you know everything, then you know you can't stop this. I'm executor of the will. I control the medical decisions if you become incompetent, and with Dr. Patterson's records, I can have you declared incompetent whenever I choose. You have no power here, Stella. You never did. Dr. Patterson won't back false records now. Not after today. Won't he? Robert smiled, and it was a terrible smile. He's been my friend for 20 years. We golf together. Our wives are friends. And he's the one who'll face consequences for those fabricated records, not me. I'll tell him you found them, that you created them yourself as part of your dementia. Proof that you're delusional, paranoid. Who do you think he'll protect? His reputation or yours? The truth of it hit me like cold water. Dr. Patterson would protect himself, which meant protecting Robert's story. I'd cornered them both, and now they'd have no choice but to double down. And if you try to tell anyone else, Robert continued, standing now, moving toward me with that same measured calm he used with difficult patients, I'll have you committed for evaluation. Psychiatric hold? 72 hours minimum. And when you come out, if you come out, you'll have a psychiatric record to go along with your cognitive decline. No one will believe anything you say. He was right. The system would believe him, the respected dentist, over me, especially with fabricated medical records and a psychiatric commitment to point to. I'd made a tactical error. I'd confronted him too soon, before I had irrefutable proof, before I'd built a case strong enough to withstand his counterattack. What happens now? I asked quietly. Now? Robert checked his watch. Now I have a call to make. Then we're going to sit down and discuss this like rational adults. We're going to come to an agreement about how this marriage ends. Peacefully. Amicably. Or I make the call to have you evaluated. Your choice, Stella. He walked out of the room, his phone already in his hand. I heard his study door close. I stood in our living room, shaking with rage and fear and the awful realization that I'd underestimated him just as badly as he'd underestimated me. My phone buzzed. A text from Marion. Found something urgent. Can you come to the library? Don't call. Just come. I looked toward Robert's study. Behind that closed door, he was making his call. To Laura? To Dr. Patterson? To someone else in this conspiracy? I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. Where are you going? Robert's voice came from the study doorway. Out, I said. We're not finished talking. Yes, we are. For now. I met his eyes. You said I have a choice. I'm making it. I'm leaving. If you walk out that door, then what? You'll have me committed? Go ahead. Try. But I'll tell them everything, Robert. About Laura Hardy, about the money you've given her, about the scheduled messages planning my death. Let's see whose story they believe. It was a bluff. I knew it. He probably knew it too. But it bought me time. I walked out of my house, got in my car, and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw Robert standing in the doorway, his phone pressed to his ear, watching me go. The October afternoon had turned gray, clouds rolling in from the Atlantic. Rain was coming. I could smell it in the air. At the library, Marion was waiting in her office, her face pale. What did you find? I asked. She turned her computer screen toward me. On it was a news article from the Boston Globe, dated 8 months ago. Dental practice owner found dead in apparent suicide. Business partner under investigation. I read the article with growing horror. Dr. James Cole, a Boston dentist, had been found dead in his home. An apparent suicide by medication overdose. His business partner, a consultant named Laura Hardy, had been under investigation for financial irregularities but was never charged. The practice had been sold shortly after, its assets liquidated. There's more, Marion said quietly, clicking to another article. 2 years before that, another dentist in Connecticut. Same pattern. Laura Hardy as consultant, sudden death. Practice liquidated. That case was ruled an accident. Carbon monoxide in his garage. How many? I whispered. 3 that I can find. Maybe more. Marion's hands were shaking. Stella, she's done this before. She finds successful professionals, older men, helps them plan some kind of exit strategy, and then they die. And every time, she walks away with a fortune and no charges filed. 3 men, all dead. All ruled suicide or accident. All after partnering with Laura Hardy. Robert doesn't know, I said slowly. He thinks he's using her. He thinks they're going to kill me and run away together. But she's planning to kill him too. After he kills me, maybe even make it look like murder-suicide. Guilty husband, dead wife, tragic end. You need to warn him. Why should I? The words came out bitter. He's planning to murder me. Maybe she should kill him first. Stella. No, you're right. I pressed my hands to my temples, trying to think. If he dies, everything gets complicated. Insurance investigations, estate battles, and our children. I stopped. Our children. Michael, Michelle, and Jennifer. 3 adults who would be devastated by their father's death, who would inherit everything, who would never know their father had planned to murder their mother, unless I could prove it. I need to talk to Laura Hardy, I said, face to face. That's insane. She's dangerous. She's killed at least 3 people. She's never been caught, which means she's careful, calculated. She won't risk exposure by doing anything to me directly. I grabbed my purse. Where does she live? Pearl Street. But Stella, trust me, I know what I'm doing. I didn't, not really, but I was out of time for careful planning. Robert was making his moves, and I needed to make mine faster. Laura Hardy's condo was in a converted warehouse building overlooking the harbor, all exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows. The kind of place that screamed money she'd gotten from my husband. I buzzed her apartment. No answer. I tried again. Yes? Her voice came through the intercom, smooth and cultured. Ms. Hardy? My name is Stella Hammond. I believe you know my husband, Robert. I'd like to speak with you. A long pause. Then, come up, 4th floor. The elevator rose slowly, giving me time to second-guess every decision that had brought me here. But the doors opened, and there she was, waiting in her doorway. Laura Hardy was beautiful, not in the obvious way. She was 42, with gray threading through her dark hair and lines around her eyes. But there was something magnetic about her, an intelligence in her gaze that I recognized immediately. She was a predator, and she was very good at what she did. Mrs. Hammond, she said, stepping aside to let me in. I've been expecting you. The condo was minimally furnished, but expensive. White walls, modern furniture, that $1 million view of the harbor. Have you? I said. Robert called me this morning. He's worried about you. He says you've been acting paranoid, going through his things, making accusations. She poured 2 glasses of wine, offered me one. I didn't take it. He's concerned you might be experiencing early dementia. How convenient for you both. Laura smiled and set down the wine. Let's not play games, Stella. We're both intelligent women. You know what's happening. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I'm going to stop you, I said. Both of you. No, you're not. She sat on the white sofa, crossed her legs elegantly. Because you can't prove anything. Those scheduled messages? Robert will say they were a joke, a game we were playing. The money? Business investments. The fake medical records? He'll blame Dr. Patterson, claim he was misled. Everything can be explained away. You've done this before. 3 times at least. 3 dead men. Tragic coincidences. Her smile didn't waver. Investigated and cleared every time. Because I'm very careful, Stella. And very patient. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand your situation. Laura leaned forward. Robert is planning to kill you. He's committed to it now. His practice is under contract. The money's been transferred. Our life in Florida is arranged. But here's what he doesn't know. I don't need him. I never did. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? I mean that Robert served his purpose. He gave me access to his assets, put everything in motion. But once you're dead, he becomes a liability. A murderer with a guilty conscience. A man who might crack under pressure, who might confess. She stood, walked to the window overlooking the harbor. So here's what's going to happen. Robert is going to kill you. However he's planned it, whatever method he's chosen. And then, filled with remorse, he's going to kill himself. Tragic murder-suicide. The practice will be liquidated to settle the estate. And I, as his business partner and consultant, will facilitate that liquidation. For a substantial fee, of course. You're insane. I'm practical, and I'm giving you a choice. She turned to face me. Work with me. Help me prove Robert's planning to kill you. We'll go to the police together. You, the concerned wife. Me, the worried business partner. We'll turn him in, save your life, and he'll go to prison. The practice will still need to be sold, but you'll be alive to benefit from it. You want me to betray my husband? I want you to survive. And in return, you split the practice sale proceeds with me. $1 million for you, $1 million for me. You get to live, I get paid. Robert goes to prison. Everyone wins. Except Robert, of course. I stared at her. This woman who had killed 3 men and was now offering me a devil's bargain. Why would I trust you? Because you don't have a choice. Robert's going to kill you, Stella. Soon. Maybe this week. Maybe tonight. Your only chance is to act first. With me. She walked closer, her voice dropping. Or you can try to stop him alone and end up just another tragic statistic. Another elderly woman with dementia who accidentally overdosed on her medications. How do you think he's planning it? Pills? An accident on the stairs? Carbon monoxide while you sleep? My phone buzzed. A text from Robert. Where are you? We need to talk. Come home. Laura saw me read it. He's getting impatient, making his move. What's it going to be, Stella? Partner with me in love? Or go home to your husband and take your chances? I looked at this woman who had killed 3 men, who was planning to kill my husband, who was offering me survival at the price of betrayal, and I realized that somewhere in the past 48 hours, I'd walked into a trap that had no good exits. I need time to think, I said. You have until midnight. After that, I call Robert and tell him you came here, that you know everything, that he needs to act immediately. Laura's smile was cold. Choose wisely, Stella. Your life depends on it. I walked out of that condo into the October rain, my phone buzzing with another text from Robert. Stella, please, come home. I'm worried about you. I had 8 hours until midnight. 8 hours to decide whether to trust a serial killer or face my murderous husband alone. 8 hours to figure out how to survive a game where both players wanted me dead. I didn't go home. Instead, I drove to the one place in Portland where I could think clearly, the Eastern Promenade, overlooking Casco Bay. The rain had stopped, leaving the October evening cold and sharp. I sat on a bench facing the water and tried to organize the chaos of the past 48 hours into something resembling a plan. Robert wanted me dead for money and freedom. Laura wanted Robert dead for money and safety. Both of them believed I was expendable. Naive. Easy to manipulate or eliminate. They were both wrong. My phone rang. Michael, my oldest son. I almost didn't answer, but a mother's instinct is hard to ignore. Mom? Where are you? Dad called me. He's worried sick. I'm fine, Michael. I just needed some air. He says you've been acting strange, paranoid. He mentioned something about fake medical records. Michael's voice carried the careful tone people use when they think they're talking to someone unstable. Mom, are you feeling okay? So Robert was already working on the children, planting seeds, building his narrative. Michael, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Your father is lying to you. Mom, no, listen. He's planning something. Something terrible. I found evidence. Evidence of what? Now Michael sounded truly worried. Not for me. For my mental state. Mom, Dad says you've been going through his things, making accusations about his business partner. He's really concerned about you. We all are. We. Michelle and Jennifer are on their way up from Boston. They'll be there by tonight. We think maybe you need to see someone. A specialist. Dad found a really good facility that... A facility. The words came out flat. He wants to have me committed. Not committed. Just evaluated. Mom, you sound like you're not yourself. I closed my eyes. This was Robert's plan B. If he couldn't kill me quietly, he'd have me institutionalized. And once I was locked away, medicated, declared incompetent, he could do whatever he wanted with our assets, our life. And when I finally died, in that facility or after, no one would question it. Michael, on September 12th, where was I? What? September 12th. Where was I? A pause. I don't know. Why? Because your father has medical records claiming I was at Dr. Patterson's office having cognitive testing that day. But I was actually in Boston at a library conference. I have proof. Receipts, photos, attendance records. Someone created false documents, Michael. Someone is trying to make me look incompetent when I'm not. Silence on the other end of the line. Then, why would Dad do that? Because he's planning to leave me. There's a woman named Laura Hardy. He's given her $800,000. He's selling his practice, and he needs me declared incompetent so he can control everything without a messy divorce. Michael's voice trailed off. That's crazy, Mom. Is it? Or does it explain everything that's been happening? Your father's secretive behavior, the sudden concern about my memory, the pressure to downsize, to simplify our finances. Another pause. Longer this time. I'll ask him about it. Don't. The word came out sharper than I intended. Michael, please. Don't tell him we talked about this. Not yet. Just come to Portland. Look at the evidence I have. Then decide what you believe. Mom, if what you're saying is true, it is true, and it's worse than you know. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that? He sighed. Okay, I'll come. But I'm bringing Michelle and Jennifer with me. We'll all sit down together and figure this out. Thank you. I ended the call before he could hear my voice break. The sun was setting over the bay, painting the water red and gold. Beautiful and cold. Like everything else in my life lately. I had 3 hours until midnight. 3 hours until Laura's ultimatum expired. I needed a plan that didn't involve trusting a serial killer or facing my husband's murder plot alone. I called Marion. I need everything you found on Laura Hardy, all of it. And I need you to help me with something else. Anything. I need to document everything. Every email, every financial transfer, every piece of evidence. I need it organized, dated, cross-referenced, and I need it done in the next 2 hours. Stella, what are you planning? I'm planning to survive. We worked in Marion's office, the library quiet around us after closing time. Marion printed emails, financial records, news articles about Laura's previous victims. I wrote a detailed timeline of everything that had happened, every discovery, every threat. We organized it all into a folder, evidence that told a complete story, a story of a woman fighting for her life against 2 predators. This is enough to go to the police, Marion said, looking at the assembled documents. No, it's not. Everything here can be explained away. The emails are business correspondence. The money transfers are investments. The scheduled messages are, according to Robert, jokes. Laura was never charged in those other deaths. I closed the folder. I need something irrefutable. A confession. An action so clearly criminal that no one can deny it. How do you get that? By making them think they've won. At 9 o'clock, I called Laura Hardy. I'll do it, I said. Your plan. I'll work with you, but I want guarantees. Come to my condo. We'll discuss terms. No, public place, the coffee house on Congress Street, 10 o'clock. A pause. All right, come alone. I didn't go alone. Marion followed at a distance, sitting at a separate table with her laptop, ready to document whatever happened. Laura arrived exactly at 10, sliding into the booth across from me. She ordered a cappuccino, smiled at the waitress like we were old friends having a pleasant chat. So you've decided to be smart, she said. I've decided to stay alive. That's not the same thing. Close enough. She pulled out a folder, remarkably similar to the one I'd created with Marion. I've documented everything. Robert's financial transfers to me, the fake medical records, the scheduled messages. I have copies too. He showed them to me, thinking I'd be amused. Arrogant man. You expect me to believe you'll betray him? I'm already betraying him. The question is whether you're smart enough to accept help. She slid the folder across the table. This is everything the police will need. We go together tomorrow morning. We tell them we both discovered Robert's plan. 2 credible witnesses. They'll arrest him immediately. I looked at the folder. It was comprehensive. Damning. Almost too perfect. And after he's arrested? I asked. After you hire me to help liquidate the practice. I get my fee for the work I've already done. You get the rest. We both walk away clean. Except for the 3 men you killed. Her smile didn't waver. I didn't kill anyone. 3 men died. I had nothing to do with it. No evidence, no charges, no connection. And if you try to make a connection, you'll have to explain how you know about them, which means explaining how you've been investigating me, which makes you look paranoid, unstable. She leaned forward. Face it, Stella. I'm your best option. Your only option. What makes you think I won't go to the police myself? Right now? Because you're not stupid. You know they won't believe you without proof. And by the time you gather that proof, you'll be dead. She checked her watch. Speaking of which, my deadline has passed. You've made your choice by coming here. So let's… Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her expression changed. Just slightly. A tightening around her eyes. What is it? I asked. Robert. He's asking where I am. She typed a response, set down the phone. He's getting nervous. Making moves. What kind of moves? The kind that end with you dead. Probably tonight. He's asking me to come to your house. Says he needs help with something. She looked at me. He's planning to do it tonight, Stella. And he wants me there to help stage it. Make it look like an accident. The coffee shop suddenly felt too cold. Too exposed. Through the window, I could see Congress Street, the evening pedestrians, the normal world going about its business while my life teetered on a knife's edge. Then we call the police now, I said. And tell them what? That your husband texted his business partner? That's not a crime. Laura stood. No, we stick to the plan. Tomorrow morning we go in together with evidence. Tonight you stay somewhere safe. A hotel? Don't go home. He'll know something's wrong. Let him know. Let him panic. Panicked men make mistakes. She picked up her folder. I'll meet you at the police station tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock sharp. Don't be late and don't do anything stupid. She left before I could respond, disappearing into the October night. Marian materialized at my elbow. Did you get it? I pulled the small recording device from my purse, a digital recorder I'd borrowed from the library's audiobook collection. Every word. She confessed to working with Robert. She confirmed his plan to kill me. That's different. I pocketed the recorder. But it's a start. What now? Now I go home. Stella, she said Robert's planning something tonight, which means I need to be there to stop it and to document it. I stood, gathered my things. Marian, if something happens to me, if I don't call you by midnight, take that folder to the police. Tell them everything. I don't like this. Neither do I. But I'm 66 years old, and I'm tired of being underestimated. By Robert, by Laura, by everyone who thinks age makes you weak. I touched her shoulder. Thank you. For everything. I drove home through streets that had become unfamiliar, threatening. Every car behind me might be following. Every shadow might hold danger. But I'd spent 41 years in that house, and I wasn't going to let fear drive me out of my own home. Robert's car was in the driveway. The house was dark except for a light in the kitchen. I sat in my car for a moment, checking my phone. A text from Michael. We're on our way. Should be there by 11. Dad says not to wait up. Says you need rest. Rest. Another word for unconsciousness. Vulnerability. I texted back. Don't come to the house. Meet me at the police station tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Bring Michelle and Jennifer. It's important. Then I got out of the car and walked toward my house. The front door was unlocked. I stepped inside, my senses heightened, aware of every sound, every shadow. Robert, I called. In the kitchen, dear. I found him at the table, a bottle of wine open, 2 glasses poured. He smiled when he saw me. That same smile I'd seen 10,000 times before. Warm, familiar, deadly. I was worried, he said. I'm glad you're home. Are you? Of course. He gestured to the wine. Sit. Please. We need to talk. I looked at the glasses. The wine was my favorite. A Pinot Noir from Oregon, expensive, a bottle we saved for special occasions. What are we celebrating? I asked, not moving. We're not celebrating. We're resolving things. He picked up his glass, took a sip. I know you've been scared, Stella. Confused. I know you found some things that worried you. But I can explain everything. If you'll just sit down and listen. I remained standing. Where's Laura? His hand tightened on the glass. Laura? Your business partner. The woman you've given $800,000. The woman you're planning to run away with after I'm dead. Where is she? Stella, for God's sake. She's not coming, is she? You texted her, asked her to come help you, but she didn't respond. Because she's done with you, Robert. She got what she wanted. And now you're alone with a wife who knows everything and a murder plot that's falling apart? Robert set down his glass very carefully. When he looked at me, the mask was gone completely. No warmth, no pretense, just cold assessment. How much do you actually know? He asked. Everything. The messages, the money, Laura's history, the 3 men she killed. Your plan to make my death look like an accident. I pulled out my phone, held it up. And I've recorded all of it. Evidence. Proof. Enough to send you to prison for conspiracy to commit murder. You're bluffing. Am I? I played back Laura's voice from the recorder in my purse. He's planning to do it tonight, Stella, and he wants me there to help stage it. Robert's face went white, then red. He stood and I saw his hands shaking, with rage or fear I couldn't tell. You've ruined everything, he said quietly. 41 years, and you've ruined it all in 2 days. I ruined it! You planned to murder me! I planned to be free. He slammed his hand on the table, making the wine glasses jump. Free from this suffocating marriage, this boring life, this prison of responsibility. Laura offered me a way out, a new life, and you... He pointed at me, his finger shaking. You couldn't just accept it. You had to investigate, to interfere, to ruin everything. So what now? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Do you still plan to kill me? Here? Tonight? With your children on their way? That stopped him. The kids? I called Michael, told him everything. He's coming here with Michelle and Jennifer. They'll be here within the hour. A lie, but a useful one. And I've sent all the evidence to my lawyer and the police. You can't silence me anymore, Robert. It's over. He stared at me, and I watched the calculation in his eyes, weighing options, assessing escape routes, trying to find a way to salvage his plan. Then his shoulders slumped. He sat back down, picked up the wine glass, drained it. You think you're so smart, he said quietly, but you don't understand what you've done. Laura isn't done with me. She's done with both of us. Those other men, they didn't die because she wanted money. They died because they became liabilities, threats, and now we both are. A chill ran down my spine. What do you mean? I mean Laura Hardy doesn't leave loose ends. And we're loose ends, Stella. Both of us. She has evidence against me, and now she has evidence that you know about her. She can't let either of us talk to the police, so she'll... The kitchen window shattered. I hit the floor instinctively, glass raining down around me. Robert dove under the table. For a moment, there was only silence and the sound of our ragged breathing, then footsteps on the back porch. Slow, measured, coming toward the door. Robert's eyes met mine across the kitchen floor, and in that moment, I saw genuine terror there. Terror that matched my own. She's here, he whispered. God help us. She's here. The back door handle turned slowly. We weren't dealing with a con artist anymore, or a schemer who worked through manipulation and forged documents. We were dealing with a killer who'd decided to eliminate her witnesses, and she was coming inside. The back door opened slowly, and Laura Hardy stepped into my kitchen like she owned it. She was wearing gloves, black leather, and carrying nothing visible, but her presence filled the room with cold menace. Both of you, on your feet, she said calmly. Slowly. Robert and I rose from the floor, glass crunching under our shoes. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my mind was clear, crystalline. This was the moment I'd been preparing for, even if I hadn't known it. Laura, Robert began, I can explain. You texted me 6 times tonight, she interrupted, moving further into the kitchen. Desperate messages, begging me to come help you handle Stella. You made me a co-conspirator in murder, Robert. Put it in writing. Did you really think I'd ignore that liability? I never meant. Of course you didn't. You never think past your immediate needs. That's why you're a terrible criminal. She glanced at me. And you. So clever. Recording our conversation, gathering evidence, playing detective. You should have gone to the police immediately. Instead, you came home to confront him. Fatal mistake. The police have everything, I said. If something happens to us— No, they don't. You're bluffing, I can tell. Laura smiled. You wanted more evidence first. You wanted to catch him in the act, get a confession. You're too thorough to go to the police with half a case. It's a librarian's instinct. Complete the research before drawing conclusions. She was right, and she knew it. The folder was still with Marion, the recording in my purse. Nothing had been delivered to the police yet. So what's your plan? I asked, forcing my voice steady. Kill us both? That's 2 murders, Laura. Much harder to explain than one accident. Not when it's a murder-suicide. She moved toward the wine bottle on the table. Distraught husband, planning to kill his wife, gets caught by her. They struggle. He stabs her. She picked up the knife from the counter, the one I'd used to slice lemons for dinner. And then, overcome with guilt, he takes his own life. Tragic end to a 41-year marriage. The whole neighborhood will talk about it for years. They'll investigate, Robert said, his voice shaking. They'll find the financial transfers, the evidence. Evidence I'll provide myself. As the concerned business partner who tried to warn Stella about her husband's declining mental state, his paranoia, his violent fantasies. Laura set down the knife, looked at us both. I've done this before. I know how to construct a narrative. The question is, which of you dies first? She was playing with us, enjoying this. And I realized something crucial. Laura Hardy was the most dangerous when she thought she'd won. You've made a mistake, I said quietly. Laura laughed. Have I? Yes. You assumed I came home alone tonight. You assumed I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I pulled out my phone, held it up so she could see the screen. I've been on an open call with Marion Andrews at the Portland Public Library for the past 20 minutes. She's heard everything, every word you've said. Laura's smile faltered, just for a second. But it was enough. You're lying. Am I? I hit the speaker button. Marion, are you there? I'm here, Stella. Marion's voice filled the kitchen, thin but clear through the phone's speaker. And I've recorded everything. Laura Hardy, I'm calling the police right now on my other line. They're on their way. Laura's face went white, then flushed with rage. She moved toward me fast, grabbing for the phone. I'd spent 41 years being underestimated, being seen as gentle, passive, safe. I threw the hot coffee from my mug directly into her face. Laura screamed, stumbling backward, her hands going to her eyes. Robert lunged for the knife on the counter, but I got there first, sweeping it away from both of them. Out, I told Robert. Front door. Now. But now! We ran. Through the living room, past 41 years of family photographs and carefully chosen furniture, out the front door into the October night. Behind us, I heard Laura recovering, cursing, crashing through the kitchen. Robert's hands shook as he fumbled with his car keys. She'll kill us. No, she won't. Not now. Not with witnesses and recordings. I grabbed his arm. But we need to get to the police station. Right now. Before she runs. We got into his car. His hands were shaking too badly to drive. So I drove. Something I hadn't done with Robert in the passenger seat in years. We flew down Munjoy Hill toward the police station on Middle Street. And I called Marion back. Are the police really coming? I asked. On their way to your house. I called them the moment Laura admitted to planning murder. They've been listening to the recording. Marion's voice was breathless. Stella, are you safe? Getting there. Meet us at the station. Bring everything. The Portland Police Department was lit up like a beacon. I pulled into the parking lot and we practically fell out of the car. Inside, the night desk sergeant looked up in alarm at our disheveled appearance. We need to report an attempted murder, I said, and a conspiracy, and fraud, and we have evidence. Within minutes, we were in an interview room. Within an hour, Marion arrived with the folder and the recordings. Within 2 hours, Detective Melissa Morgan was looking at everything we'd compiled with an expression of growing shock. Mrs. Hammond, she said carefully, are you telling me that your husband conspired with Laura Hardy to murder you, and then she attempted to kill you both when you discovered the plot? That's exactly what I'm telling you. I met her eyes. And I have proof of everything. Robert sat beside me, his head in his hands. When the detective asked him to confirm my story, he just nodded. I wanted out of the marriage, he said quietly. I met Laura 6 months ago. She was so vibrant, alive. She made me feel young again. When she suggested I could liquidate the practice, start fresh, I jumped at it. He looked at me, and there were tears in his eyes. But I never wanted to kill you, Stella. I swear. That was all Laura's idea. She said it was the only way, that a divorce would destroy me financially, that you'd never agree to a settlement. She kept pushing, planning, and I went along with it because I'm a coward. So, the scheduled messages? Detective Cole asked. Laura wrote them. Said they were just a fantasy. A game. I never thought she'd actually... His voice broke. I never thought any of this would actually happen. It was a lie. Or half a lie. Robert had wanted me dead. The evidence was clear. But now, faced with the consequences, he was trying to shift blame entirely onto Laura, making himself the manipulated victim instead of the co-conspirator. I didn't contradict him. Not yet. Let him think I'd forgive him, that I'd help him build his defense. The truth would come out eventually, in depositions and trials and careful examination of evidence. Laura Hardy is extremely dangerous, I told Detective Cole. She's killed before, at least 3 times, men in situations identical to this. I have documentation. Marion stepped forward with newspaper articles, research notes, timelines. Detective Cole's expression grew darker as she read. We've issued an APB for Hardy, and your recording is admissible under Maine's one-party consent rules. She said, We'll have officers at your home, Mrs. Hammond, and we'll need full statements from both of you. This is going to take several hours. I'm not going anywhere, I said. We sat in that interview room until dawn, telling the story again and again. Robert's version emphasized Laura's manipulation, her predatory nature, his weakness and regret. My version was simpler. The truth, documented and provable. At 5 a.m, my children arrived. Michael, Michelle, and Jennifer, their faces pale with shock and fear. They'd received my text about meeting at the police station and had driven through the night from Boston. Mom? Michael pulled me into his arms. Dad called us, said something terrible happened. Are you okay? Over his shoulder, I saw Robert watching us, his face full of manufactured remorse and desperate hope. I'm fine, I said. But there's a lot I need to tell you. About your father. About everything. We sat in a conference room, all of us finally, and I told my children the truth. Showed them the evidence, the scheduled messages, the financial transfers, the fake medical records, Laura Hardy's history. I watched their faces change as they listened. Watched them look at their father with growing horror and disbelief. Dad? Michelle's voice was small. Is this true? Robert opened his mouth, closed it. What could he say? The evidence was overwhelming. His explanations were tissue thin. I made terrible mistakes, he said finally. I was weak, foolish, but I never wanted to actually hurt your mother. You have to believe that. You scheduled messages about her funeral, Jennifer said, her voice hard. You gave another woman $800,000. You tried to have Mom declared incompetent. Laura manipulated me. You're an adult. Michael's hands were shaking. You're our father. You don't get to blame everything on someone else. You made choices. You chose to betray Mom. You chose to plan her murder. It was never real, Robert insisted. Just fantasy, just... Stop. I held up one hand. Robert, stop lying. To them, to yourself, to me. I looked at my children. Your father wanted me dead so he could start a new life with money from his practice and my life insurance. He brought Laura Hardy into it because he needed help staging it. She played along because she saw an opportunity to take everything and eliminate both of us. They're both guilty. The degree might differ, but they both planned to kill me. Silence filled the conference room. Outside, dawn was breaking over Portland, painting the sky pink and gold. Michelle started crying. Jennifer put her arm around her sister. Michael just stared at his father with an expression I'd never seen before. Complete rejection. I think, Michael said slowly, that you're going to need a lawyer, Dad. And you're not going to be staying with any of us while you wait for trial. Robert's face crumbled. Michael, please. No. My son stood. You tried to kill our mother. There's no coming back from that. Detective Cole appeared in the doorway. About 2 hours after the incident, we located Laura Hardy as she attempted to board a flight to Miami. We have her in custody. Relief flooded through me so intensely I had to sit down. She's asking for a lawyer, the detective continued, but she's also making statements, trying to cut a deal. She's claiming you, she nodded at Robert, were the primary planner, that she was just a consultant who got in over her head. Of course she was. Laura Hardy was a survivor, and survivors threw others under the bus when necessary. We'll need more statements, Detective Cole said. From all of you. This is going to be a long investigation. How long? I asked. Months, maybe longer. We're looking at conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, fraud, embezzlement. The list keeps growing. She looked at me with something like respect. Mrs. Hammond, you did incredible work gathering this evidence. Most victims never see it coming. I'm not most victims, I said quietly. By 7 in the morning, we were finally allowed to leave. Michael offered to drive me home, but I declined. I needed to see my house, my home, in daylight. Needed to reclaim it from the violence that had invaded it last night. Robert was being held for further questioning. He'd be charged, eventually. The evidence was too strong. His lawyer would argue manipulation, diminished capacity, anything to reduce his sentence. But he'd go to prison. I was certain of that. Laura Hardy would fight harder. She had experience with investigations, with constructing narratives. But this time, she'd left too many witnesses, too much evidence. Marion's recording was damning. My testimony was detailed and credible. And most importantly, she'd gotten arrogant. She'd underestimated a 66-year-old librarian and paid the price. I drove home alone, through streets I'd known for 41 years, past the coffee shop and the bookstore, and Kevin's repair shop where this had all begun. The house was surrounded by police tape. Officers were still processing the scene, photographing the shattered window, collecting evidence, documenting Laura's break-in. I stood on the sidewalk and looked at my home, our home, the place where I'd raised 3 children, celebrated 41 anniversaries, lived a life I'd thought was safe and predictable. Mrs. Hammond? A young officer approached. We're almost finished here. You should be able to get back in by this afternoon. Is there somewhere you can stay until then? I'll figure something out. Ma'am? He hesitated. For what it's worth, you're the bravest person I've ever met. What you did last night, calling your friend, recording everything, throwing that coffee, you saved your own life and probably your husband's too. He's not my husband anymore, I said. Not in any way that matters. I walked away from that house, got back in my car, and drove to the Eastern Promenade. The same bench where I'd sat yesterday trying to make sense of the chaos. The bay was calm this morning, reflecting the sunrise. Beautiful, peaceful, deceptive in its tranquility, just like my marriage had been. My phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. Hello? Mrs. Hammond? This is attorney Mike Cole. I'm representing your husband. I have nothing to say to him. I understand, but I wanted you to know that Robert wants to plead guilty. He's prepared to cooperate fully with the prosecution, testify against Laura Hardy, and accept whatever sentence the court determines. He's asked me to tell you he's sorry, and that he knows he doesn't deserve forgiveness. He's right. He doesn't. He also wants you to know that he's instructed me to ensure you retain all marital assets. The house, the practice sale proceeds, everything. He's not going to fight you on the divorce or the property settlement. I laughed, a sound without humor. How generous. He'll give me what's already mine while he goes to prison for trying to kill me. Mrs. Hammond, tell Robert that sorry isn't enough. Tell him that 41 years of deception can't be erased with a guilty plea. And tell him that I hope he lives a very long life in prison, thinking every day about what he threw away. I hung up. The sun was fully up now, warming the October morning. Around me, Portland was waking up. Joggers on the path, dogs being walked, the ordinary rhythm of life continuing despite the extraordinary events of the past 48 hours. I'd survived. through intelligence, courage, and the refusal to be the victim everyone assumed I'd be. But survival was only the beginning. Now came the hard part, rebuilding a life from the rubble of a 41-year lie. 3 months later, I stood in the courtroom and watched Laura Hardy receive her sentence. 25 years for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, fraud, and a list of other charges that took the judge 5 minutes to read aloud. She'd fought until the end, her lawyers constructing elaborate defenses, but Marion's recording had been irrefutable. My testimony had been unshakable. And when investigators dug deeper into those 3 previous deaths, they'd found patterns, financial irregularities, suspicious timing, witnesses who'd been afraid to speak before. Laura Hardy would likely die in prison. She looked at me as the bailiffs led her away, her face a mask of cold fury. I met her gaze without flinching. She'd underestimated me, and that mistake had cost her everything. Robert's sentencing had been quieter, sadder. 12 years for conspiracy to commit murder, reduced because of his cooperation and guilty plea. His lawyer had argued that he'd been manipulated, that Laura had been the primary architect of the plot. The judge had been unmoved. "You are a 68-year-old man," she'd said from the bench, looking at Robert with barely concealed disgust. "A professional, a father and grandfather. You chose to participate in a plot to murder your wife of 41 years rather than have an honest conversation about divorce. That choice reveals profound moral bankruptcy, regardless of who initiated the plan." My children had attended his sentencing. They'd sat behind me, silent, their support a physical presence at my back. When Robert had turned to look at us before being led away, none of them had met his eyes. The divorce had been finalized 2 weeks ago. I kept the house, the retirement accounts, and my share of the dental practice sale proceeds after the court-appointed receiver closed the sale in March 2025. Robert's lawyer had made good on his promise. Robert didn't contest anything. Perhaps he'd genuinely felt guilty. Or perhaps he'd simply recognized that fighting would only make things worse. I didn't care which. I had what I needed to rebuild. Today, I was meeting with the real estate agent. The house on Munjoy Hill was too large for one person, too full of ghosts and broken memories. I'd decided to sell it and buy something smaller. A condo overlooking the harbor, perhaps. Something that was entirely mine, untainted by the past. "Mrs. Hammond?" The agent, a woman named Patricia Cole, smiled at me across her desk. "I have excellent news. We've received 3 offers on your property, all above asking price. The market is very strong right now." We reviewed the offers together. One was from a young family, a couple with 2 children, their letter full of excitement about raising their kids in the neighborhood. I thought about Michael, Michelle, and Jennifer playing in that backyard, climbing the old maple tree, learning to ride bikes on the quiet street. "This one," I said, pointing to the young family's offer. "I'll accept this one." "It's actually the lowest of the 3 offers," Patricia noted gently. "I know, but they'll love the house the way it deserves to be loved. That matters more than an extra $20,000. Patricia smiled. "You have a kind heart, Mrs. Hammond." I thought about that as I drove home. To the house that would soon belong to someone else. Kind wasn't the word most people had been using to describe me lately. The local news had covered the trial extensively, painting me as either a hero or a victim, depending on the outlet. My story had been picked up nationally. "Woman outsmarts husband's murder plot," ran in USA Today. A producer from a true crime podcast had called 3 times. I'd declined all interview requests. This wasn't a story I wanted to tell for entertainment. It was my life, my pain, my survival. I didn't owe anyone else access to it. Kevin Torres had been one of the few bright spots in the aftermath. He'd testified at both trials, explaining how he'd found the scheduled messages, how he'd immediately known something was wrong. His testimony had been crucial. It established the timeline, proved the premeditation. "You saved my life," I told him afterward. "You saved your own life," he'd corrected. "I just gave you information." Everything after that, the investigation, the evidence gathering, the confrontation, that was all you. He was right, of course, but I'd learned something important over these 3 months. You don't survive alone. Marion's help had been invaluable. Kevin's warning had been essential. My children's support had kept me grounded when everything felt surreal and impossible. Community mattered. Connection mattered. And I'd spent 41 years in a marriage that had isolated me, made me smaller, convinced me that Robert's approval was all I needed. Never again. I pulled into the driveway of the Munjoy Hill house one last time. Tomorrow, the movers would come. Next week, I'd hand over the keys to that young family and their dreams. Inside, the house was mostly empty now. Boxes lined the hallways, furniture covered with sheets. I'd kept very little. Photographs of my children, books I couldn't bear to part with, a few pieces my mother had left me. Everything else was going to charity, or to the kids. I didn't want anything that reminded me of Robert. My phone rang. Michelle. Mom? Are you home? We're outside. All three of my children stood on the porch. Michael with his wife Amy, Michelle alone after her recent divorce, Jennifer with her girlfriend Kate. They were carrying grocery bags and bottles of wine. We thought you could use company on your last night here, Michael said. And we brought supplies for a proper goodbye dinner, Jennifer added. We cooked together in the kitchen where Laura Hardy had threatened our lives. We ate at the dining room table where I'd served 10,000 family meals, where Robert had pretended everything was normal while planning my death. We drank wine and told stories. Good memories from before everything shattered, because those memories deserved to be preserved, even if the marriage itself had been a lie. Do you remember when Dad tried to install that ceiling fan? Michelle asked, laughing. And it fell down in the middle of dinner? And he insisted he'd done it correctly, that the ceiling was defective, Michael added. We all laughed, but there was pain beneath the humor. Grief for what we'd lost, for the father they'd thought they knew, for the family unit that had seemed so solid and was revealed to be built on sand. I'm sorry, I said quietly. I'm sorry that I didn't see it earlier, that I let you all believe everything was fine for so long. Mom, no. Jennifer reached across the table, took my hand. You didn't let us believe anything. He lied. To all of us. For years, probably. You're not responsible for his deception. But I should have. What? Read his mind. Monitored his every action. Michael shook his head. You trusted your husband. That's not a failure, Mom. That's what marriage is supposed to be. He's the one who betrayed that trust. You're the bravest person I know, Michelle said, her eyes bright with unshed tears. When you found out what he was planning, you didn't fall apart. You didn't run away. You fought back. You gathered evidence. You outsmarted both of them. And you survived. You're our hero, Mom. I let myself cry then. The first real tears I'd shed since that October night when everything changed. My children surrounded me, holding me, letting me release months of fear and grief and rage. I thought I'd be devastated, I admitted. Losing the marriage, losing the house, losing the life I'd built. But I'm not. I'm relieved. Is that terrible? It's honest, Amy said gently. And honesty is what you deserve now. After 41 years of lies. We stayed up late, long after we'd normally have gone to bed. We played cards, a game we'd played as a family for decades, and drank too much wine and laughed until we cried. And for the first time in months, I felt light, free. At midnight, as my children were preparing to leave, Michael pulled me aside. I went to see Dad last week, he said quietly. I stiffened. You don't need my permission. I know, but I wanted you to know. He looked uncomfortable. He's not doing well. Prison it's hard on him. He's lost weight. He looks old. He is old. We both are. He asked about you. Whether you were okay? Whether you'd found a new place? Michael met my eyes. I didn't tell him anything. I said you were doing well, that you were moving forward. He cried. Good. Mom. No, Michael. I know you want me to feel sorry for him, to forgive him, but I can't. Maybe someday, but not now. Not when I still wake up sometimes and wonder if he would have actually gone through with it. If he would have held me while I died, knowing he'd killed me. Michael hugged me tightly. You don't have to forgive him. I just wanted you to know that he's suffering, that he knows what he lost. After they left, I walked through the empty house one final time. Each room held memories, birthdays and Christmases and ordinary Tuesdays. I'd been happy here once, or I'd thought I was happy, which maybe amounted to the same thing. But happiness built on lies isn't real. And I was done with anything that wasn't real. I spent my last night in the house sleeping on an air mattress in the master bedroom, surrounded by boxes. And when dawn broke over Portland, I felt ready. Ready to leave. Ready to start over. Ready to be Stella Hammond, not Robert's wife or the murder plot survivor, but just myself, whoever that turned out to be. The movers came at 8. By noon, the house was empty. By 2 o'clock, I'd handed the keys to Patricia Cole and driven away without looking back. My new condo was downtown, in a renovated building near the old port. Smaller than the house, just 2 bedrooms, one for me and one for guests. But the windows overlooked the harbor, and the space felt like possibility. Marian helped me unpack, chattering about library gossip and her daughter's upcoming wedding. Kevin stopped by with a housewarming gift, a new laptop, top of the line, already set up and ready to use. For your next investigation, he joked. There won't be a next investigation, I assured him. I'm done with mysteries. But that wasn't entirely true, because the biggest mystery remained. Who was I, now that I wasn't Robert's wife? Now that I didn't have to be accommodating, careful, small? Over the next weeks, I began to find out. I joined a book club, a real one, not the polite social gathering I'd attended before, but a group that read challenging books and had passionate, sometimes heated discussions. I started yoga teacher training, something I'd always wanted to do but never had time for. I volunteered at the library, helping Marian with digital literacy programs for seniors. I dated, tentatively, a retired professor I met at the bookstore, a widower from the book club. Nothing serious, nothing that required promises or compromises. Just conversation and companionship on my terms. I discovered that I liked living alone, liked making decisions without consulting anyone, liked eating dinner at 9 o'clock if I wanted to, or not eating dinner at all, liked the silence and the solitude and the freedom to be exactly who I was without editing myself. 6 months after Laura's sentencing, I received a letter forwarded from my lawyer. It was from Robert, written from the federal prison in New Hampshire where he was serving his sentence. I almost threw it away unopened. But curiosity, the same quality that had saved my life, made me read it. Dear Stella, I don't expect you to respond to this. I don't even know if you'll read it. But I need to say some things, even if only to the void. I was a fool, a coward, a selfish man who threw away everything valuable for a fantasy. I told myself I was unhappy, that I deserved more, that you didn't understand me. But the truth is simpler and uglier. I was bored. And instead of dealing with that honestly, I destroyed our life. You were always the strong one. I see that now. You raised our children while I focused on my career. You maintained our home, our social connections, our family bonds. You were the foundation of everything good in my life, and I was planning to kill you rather than have an honest conversation about what I needed. I think about that every day in here, about how close I came to murder, about what I would have lost. Not just my freedom, but my soul. Laura manipulated me, but I let her. I wanted to believe her promises because they let me avoid responsibility. That's on me. All of it. I hope you're happy, Stella. I hope you're building a life that makes you feel as free and alive as you deserve to feel. I hope someday our children can forgive me, though I don't deserve it. And I hope you know that what you did, fighting back, surviving, refusing to be a victim, that took more courage than I've ever had in my entire life. I'm sorry. For everything. Robert. I read the letter twice. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. I didn't respond. I didn't forgive him. But I acknowledged his words, his regret, his recognition of what he'd done. And then I moved on. Because that was the real victory. Not the trial, not the sentencing, not even the survival. The victory was building a life so full and satisfying that Robert's absence didn't leave a hole. The victory was discovering that at 66 years old, I was stronger, braver, and more capable than I'd ever known. 1 year after that October night when everything changed, I stood on my balcony overlooking Casco Bay and watched the sunset paint the water gold and red. The air smelled of salt and possibility. Below, Portland bustled with life. Tourists and locals, students and artists, the beautiful chaos of a city in motion. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. "Dinner tomorrow? I want you to meet Kate's parents." I smiled and texted back, "I'd love to." Behind me, my condo was warm and welcoming, filled with books I loved and photographs of people who mattered. It was small, but mine. Every inch of it reflected my choices, my taste, my life. No secrets, no lies, no compromises that made me smaller. At 66, I'd learned the most important lesson of my life. Survival isn't just about staying alive. It's about refusing to let anyone, even someone you've loved for 41 years, define who you are or what you're worth. I'd spent decades being underestimated, being seen as the quiet wife, the helpful librarian, the nice woman who never made waves. And when it mattered most, that underestimation had been my greatest weapon. Because while Robert and Laura were planning my death, I was planning my survival. While they were congratulating themselves on their cleverness, I was gathering evidence. While they thought they'd won, I was 3 steps ahead. Age isn't weakness. Experience isn't obsolescence. And a woman who's lived 66 years has learned things about patience, persistence, and power that young arrogance can never comprehend. I survived because I refused to be the victim they assumed I'd be. I survived because I was smarter, tougher, and more resourceful than they gave me credit for. I survived because I'd spent a lifetime observing, learning, preparing for challenges I didn't even know were coming. And now, standing in my own space, living my own life, answering to no one but myself, I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. The sun set over the bay, and I watched it without fear, without regret, without anything but gratitude for the second chance I'd fought so hard to earn. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new possibilities, new chapters in a story that was finally, truly mine. But tonight, I was simply Stella Hammond, 66 years old, wiser than ever, and finally, completely free. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out the video on your screen right now. I'm sure it will surprise you.